It came from.
That's right. It came from. This week, it's going to be all Reddit. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. Any topic is fair game as long as it relates to the field of human factors, and Blake and I have an opinion on it. All right. Next up, Human Factors Masters Questions. This is from Kaibans on the Human Factors subreddit. They write, "Hi, everyone. I was recently accepted into a Human Factors Masters program that will begin this fall. Due to my undergrad being in kinesiology and the majority of my experience being in healthcare, naturally, I am drawn to this sector of human factors. So my questions are," there's a list of them. So we're going to go over them one by one, but we'll tackle them all. 1, how does choosing a specific sector work? 2, are the curriculums of human factors programs typically broad enough to give the tools that you need for at least most of the major industries? 3, how easy is it to transition from industry sectors? 4, does anyone know about human factors in surgical robotics? 5, for example, 5, are there any couples in this subreddit that are both human factors engineers? So Blake, there's a lot of questions there. Let's tackle them one by one, and we'll kind of bounce back and forth so that way we get question, answer, question, answer. Let's do that way. So Blake, how does choosing a specific sector work?
That's a great question. So I'm going to give you my take on it, and it's kind of, what are you interested in? Where do you see that you would love to apply human factors work or human factors methods to a design problem, or just places that you are really interested in? Like if you are drawn to healthcare or things that have to do with kinesiology and you want to, pursue human factors in that field, awesome. There's nothing wrong with that at all. For me, I feel like it did me a lot of justice, kind of dabbling into a bunch of different things, from aviation to, enterprise software systems to other stuff. So I feel like it's just find somewhere you like to start and kind of keep growing in that domain as long as you feel like it's something that's for you.
Yeah, for me, sector selection or industry selection starts when you start looking at grad schools. For a lot of people, you should go towards an advisor who is in your sector of interest, who is aligned with you in terms of what they're working on, what you want to work on. And I think that will help form a great relationship for getting into that sector, because they have connections most of the time. They are up to date with a lot of the research that is going on in that sector. And so start back, where you can, or when you can, start as a student looking for grad schools. That's where you want to start. Now, if you are already an established human factors professional and you are looking for another sector, it all comes back to interest, right? What interests you? And then who do you know in that sector? Can you get a foot in the door somewhere? And then it's, how do you frame, and this is kind of answering another question down the line, but how do you frame your current work or work experience in a way to apply it to that new sector? So we'll get to that in a minute. But Blake, the next question here, are the curriculums of human factors programs typically broad enough to give the tools you need for at least the most part, or for at least the most of the major industries, in your experience?
In my experience, yes. I mean, my specific school, the methods class gave me so much, both like in classroom knowledge and applied experience, that I felt like, and I know at this point that I had enough of a baseline understanding of how to apply human factors in a different type of setting, no matter if it was aviation or the DoD or working in a small startup. The biggest thing, the caveat there, is it's a baseline, and you will always continue to have to learn like the nuances in different industries. You'll kind of encounter that probably in your job interviews or anything like that. Like, for instance, healthcare, you'll want to look up specific human factors guidelines related to healthcare, which may not be anything but breezed over in a school program. But at least you should have a nice baseline to start with, so you can kind of expand out and learn what you need to.
Yeah, I agree. I think most programs offer that great baseline. And it's going to be, like Blake said, you will often find that you need to learn new skills once you get into the workforce. There are ways that certain employers do things that you have to adjust to, course correct, learn new methods. Every different program is different. And so there's kind of commonality between them all, but they'll teach you different things, and you'll learn things from people along the way. And that's part of your job, is to never stop improving. You always want to be consistently learning how to best tackle a situation. And the more things that you have in your toolbox that you can approach that situation from, the better. So yes, but you'll also obviously learn more as time goes on. Next question. Let's see here. How easy is it to transition between industry sectors? So Blake, I was kind of getting at this one earlier, but what do you think? How easy is it to transition?
It depends. The biggest thing that I have here is anybody that's listened to the show, you've heard me talk about this and harp on it before. If you've worked with me ever in the past and have like questions about this kind of stuff, I feel like networking can really help you here. Doing it early on. And in the cases where you're finding it difficult to transition between different sectors, a big way to get after it is to kind of carve your own way to figure out, how do I get into another sector? How do I get experience there? So trying to make sure that you're networking early on, that you're volunteering for, an HFES chapter, whether you're in school or you're like an adult in working life, or same thing with UX stuff. Getting really involved in the community can help you make those connections. And by making those connections, you can have a foot in the door somewhere, or maybe somebody can introduce you to somebody else. But it can be difficult, not impossible though.
I agree. I think knowing somebody in the sector that you want to go in is a huge benefit to you. The other way you can do it is just apply for jobs in that sector without really having the experience, and tailoring your experience to that new sector. Obviously, if you're trying to break into a new thing, you will need to do your own research as to what are the most common tools, methodologies, those types of things employed. And so the more you can pull from your current experience, the higher likelihood is that you'll be able to mesh with that new industry sector. If you're going from something completely different to something, or if you're going from something to something completely different, it might be harder to paint that story without a connection bridging the two. And so, yes, it does come down to people that you know, but you can also frame your experience in a way that helps you try to break into that. So that's what I have for that one. I'm going to skip this next one. We'll just go to the last one here. Are there any couples that are both human factors engineers? Blake?
Yes. And we do completely different things, which is hilarious to me. But yeah, so we do both. Elise Hallett, who's one of the best human factors engineers I've ever met. She does much more of like a traditional human factors role on top of being in a very high level leadership role. So think of it like a PM on steroids that can do a lot of awesome human factors work. Whereas I find myself in much more of a design related role. So we do contrastingly different things and have different interests both in the field and in life. But it is kind of interesting there. One thing I did want to jump in on, Nick, is something to consider if you are interested in surgical robotics and HF is checking out the human factors or the healthcare symposium footage you guys did. But there's also a lot of great companies like Intuitive who have awesome human factors practitioners on their staff that would be more than happy to talk to you about that kind of stuff. So definitely look out for those companies.
Yeah, I was going to leave with that plug there. Elise, who was on the show for the whole Human Factors Healthcare Symposium stuff, there's a lot of interesting content there that might be helpful if you're looking for that healthcare application domain area.